Rolly Romero targeting that Tank rematch, and will he get it, yes or no? It's interesting. I think Rolly surprised a lot of people. For me, it wasn't that surprising at the end of the day because I knew that, even though Ryan Garcia on paper should beat Rolly, right? Rolly was a late starter, but somehow he still found himself to this stage. And I knew, based on his last performances, it was do or die for him. If he were to lose to Ryan Garcia, then his career would basically be, all done. But him knowing that, him knowing the weight of this performance, this fight against Ryan Garcia, and then going out and performing, it made all the sense in the world, honestly, because he got that respect from Ryan Garcia. And, obviously after beating Ryan, shocking everybody that had, still picked Ryan to beat Rolly, Rolly saying that he wants big fights. He doesn't really care to fight, names that maybe they're held as champions, but he wants to fight guys that are going to be legacy fights for him. He talked about Pacquiao, but I think the more realistic fight is Tank. I don't know what weight class they would do it at because ultimately Rolly's fighting at 147. He still wants that Tank rematch, but would it play out any different? I think it would, but I also don't know how realistic Tank and Rolly is. Even though Rolly really wants that fight, he wants to get revenge against Tank, I just don't see what weight they would fight at, because I tried to talk Tank into moving up to 140 and he already was like, nah bro, like I'm gonna get messed up. And I was like, you could do some damage at 140, and Tank was like, yeah, but still, like, I don't want to get hit by guys that are way bigger than me, because at the end of the day, like, he doesn't belong there, and I understand, I saw Tank, he's a little dude, so at the end of the day, I don't know if Rolly and Tank will ever be a fight that goes down as a rematch, but I would love to see it, especially seeing that they both beaten Ryan Garcia. You could argue that Rolly beat a better version of Ryan Garcia than the one that Tank fought, because Tank obviously put the rehydration clause and the catch weight, which I get. I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff, but I also understand, how much smaller Tank is in comparison to Ryan Garcia. I've seen both guys up close, interviewed both guys, and Tank is significantly smaller than Ryan, which you guys already know, but like, trust me, in person, Tank is really little. So for him to even have fought Ryan Garcia, I've talked a lot about the rehydration clause and the catch weights, and I still don't love that stuff, because I feel like it takes away from the sport of, boxing in terms of legitimizing wins. But like, I saw him, Tank is little, so I get it. I get it why, maybe his team, maybe not even Tank, we don't even know if Tank is the one that wants these catch weights or rehydration clauses, but his team definitely wants it. He has advisors telling him like it's the best thing for his career, which I get. So like, at the end of the day, Tank's gonna do what he's gonna do. I'm sure he's gonna fight that Lamont Roach, rematch, and I'd favor Tank in that one. I favor him, if he's gonna be focused and really, want to put that stamp on it. He has to have that he has to be seeking vengeance, or else like there's a good chance Lamont beats him again. It's all about, Tank's mentality, because when you let him off the leash and he really doesn't like a guy, that's when you see the best version of Tank, because he's the most dangerous. But against a guy like Lamont, where he's like, I know this guy, we've known each other since we were little, what's my initiative or motivation to knock you out? Like, what's my motive to put a beating on you? You haven't really disrespected me. Everything you said is like, Tank's a great fighter, but I'm here to win. And that's basically all Lamont said. And then, for Tank, he needs somebody to amp him up. Somebody's got to talk shit to Tank, or else he's going to be like, whatever. Even when Tank was telling Lamont Roach, I'm going to stop you, it didn't seem organic. It seemed like he was just saying it to promote the fight. But, all the other times, Ryan Garcia, Rolly, all of these guys, Frank Martin, they've at least said something that would trigger Tank to the point where he's like, I'm going to get this guy, and he's gotten all of them. So at the end of the day, it's like, I know Lamont's great. Lamont's a great fighter, and he was underestimated by a lot of the boxing world. And, people were upset with the way that, Tank performed. But at the end of the day, that's credit to Lamont as well. But, Tank just isn't the type of guy that's going to want to beat you up if he doesn't really have like a strong dislike for you, So him and Lamont Roach will be an interesting fight. It's all about whether or not, Tank can unleash that angry version of himself where he wants to get to Lamont Roach and stop him. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't mind seeing Rolly and Tank go at it again, I gotta favor Tank still. I think Tank's a little bit too skilled, but you know, a strong version of Rolly could be unpredictable because Tank has gotten hit. You know, we've seen that he could be a little bit, you know, wobbled and dazed by shots from Lamont Roach, a guy that's coming up from 130. So a hydrated 147 Rolly Romero against Tank in a rematch, who knows how it would go. You know, it could be a closer fight, but I'd still probably favor Tank to beat Rolly, but you know, it'd be a good fight for sure. You know, I'd definitely entertain it now. So we'll see what happens. You know, I got Tank. If they do have a rematch at 147, I think Tank's just too good. He's too fast, and he has the ability to beat up fighters. It's all about, you know, him actually wanting these fights and, you know, being willing to go up in weight. I think, like, he doesn't even know how, you know, how elite he is. I think a lot of people say Tank's overrated, but I don't think he even knows, like, how good he is. So if he were to move up to 147 and fight a guy like Rolly or fight Devin at 147, I still think he'd beat those guys. You know, it's just a matter of him trusting himself to, you know, take punches at 147, but you know, I understand that's not an easy thing to do. So let me know in the comments what you guys think about Rolly and a Tank rematch. I think it'd be interesting, but let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Catch you guys on the next Navs Boxing video. Peace.